All right, a whopping 0 at my house this morning when I stepped outside. I don't know about you, but I have heard more complaints about the weather in the last month, just from friends and family, about how cold it is. But I'll tell you, there is hope. We're into February now. All right, this is game time. There is hope, and I'll tell you how there's hope. If you walk through the doors over at Nelson Ace Hardware, you're going to see grass seed. You're going to see mulch, fertilizers, products like Scott's. There is hope. And I'll tell you how else there's going to be hope, at least for me, on a personal level. When I see that McDonald's has the Shamrock Shake out, then I know there's green, there's growth coming, there's newness, the grass is going to be growing, the Shamrock Shake will be slurped, and I will be okay. If anybody gets a heads up on when McDonald's is going to release the Shamrock Shake, please give me a heads up, would you? Because I want to make this public. Actually, maybe I don't, because I don't want to have all of you running out to get Shamrock Shakes, and then I get there and they don't have any left. Anyway, we have a fantastic podcast for you this morning. I can't wait to get into it here in a second. First off, before I forget, the governor's press conference is set for 12 noon today. It's only going to be going about 30 minutes. WDEV will be carrying that, of course, as they always do. U32 and Hazen boys going to be playing tonight. Boy, are we getting close, huh? Man, girls and, girls game Harwood and Montpelier tomorrow. But, boy, what a game last night. Listening to Brent Curtis with People's Academy in Lamoille. Unbelievable. We have some clouds this morning. We have some sun. The later we get into the day, the more sun, the less clouds. What does that mean? It means that it's also going to be chilly. We're looking at a daytime high of only 15 today. Tonight, we're going to dip down into the -3 with clear skies. And then tomorrow is going to be interesting. We have snow, 25 degrees. They're saying 1 to 3 inches. Could that change? Absolutely. You know that. I know that. I'll be watching. I'll be paying attention. But they're also saying some blowing and drifting snow, and the roads aren't going to be great, and all that fun. 23 for Thursday night with cloudy skies. And I heard yesterday, and I'm not seeing it today, so things may have changed. But I heard that there may even be a little bit of wet weather into the mix tomorrow. So, again, that may have changed. I'll be watching. I'll be paying attention. Good morning, Lindsay, who was supposed to be on with me yesterday talking about the Lonnie Wade dinner, silent auction, and party going on over at the pub on the 15th. And we've been posting about it, and we're going to continue to post about it. We're going to hammer this as much as possible. Also going to be hammering the Travis Mercy Memorial Skate Park fundraiser and Freezing Fun for Families coming up last and final weekend of this month. Wow, is there a lot of stuff going on? There really is. Birthdays today. We have a few. Let's see. We have Maya Richards on the list today. We have James Pompriand, Dennis Heading. I'm sorry. Is it Dennis or Denise? I think it's Dennis. Pat Poirier, Al Miller. Let's see. Liz Crawford on the birthday list today. Happy birthday, everybody. This morning, we are going to dive in headfirst with a subject that we have discussed many times here on Aired Out. The subject of homelessness. And I have to tell you, before I even introduce our guest, I have reached out to several people in our community over the years, actually, and asked them if they would be willing to share a microphone and share their story. And it has been met with some reluctancy, some apprehension, understandably. Small town, everybody knows everybody, well, most everybody. It's easier, it's a lot easier to do stuff like that when you're in a big city. But when you're in small town Vermont, having someone who is willing to get on camera, get on the microphone, and reveal their story is, to me, remarkable and comes with great bravery to be so transparent. So I want to begin this morning by asking all of you if you would please post a comment of support, encouragement, and thanks for being willing to come on the air and share your story. Jayla Dalton is sitting right here with me this morning. Good morning, love. How are you?
Good.
I got to tell you, and I've already said it. I am, first of all, I'm thrilled to meet you. I just met you just like minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I have never I don't think I've ever met you before. I may have somewhere in Crossing, but thank you ever so much for coming in here. We chatted about this for what, a couple of weeks now?
A couple weeks, yeah.
You reached out to me.
Yes.
And you said, "Hey, I have a story, and I would like to maybe share it." And I said, "Sure. Let's do it." And then it almost kind of seemed like there for a little while in our chatting that you got some cold feet and maybe you weren't really sure.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely happened. It did. It did.
But here you are, and here we are together. And I just have to say, I think, like I've already said this morning, I think it's wonderful that you're willing to do this. This brings a face to a local story, which is quite incredible. You are someone who born and raised right here?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about where you lived. You went to Spalding High School.
I did go to Spalding High School.
Okay.
I lived in Green Acres with my single mom from the time I was about 2 until I would say right before freshman year of high school. That might be a little off, but I grew up mainly in Green Acres. Green Acres obviously has a history, always has. There was trauma, there was assault, there was drugs, all things that I saw as a child. The drug thing, though, honestly was way more under wraps. I didn't know as much about it, but yeah. I went to Websterville Baptist Christian School for most of my childhood until 5th grade when I went to Barre City. And like we said, I moved on to go to Spalding. Yeah, I mean, my childhood was interesting mainly because I was the only person, it seemed like, in my friends group that didn't have a married parents that owned their house. So my mom was a single mom, always rented, always worked her butt off. She worked for the state my entire life until I graduated high school. But we still struggled. She did make like a little more than what you should to be able to get food stamps. I do remember people in that program trying to help her to be able to, for me to just be getting like cheaper reduced lunches. Like I remember that vividly. But yeah, so I mean, I've grown up in poverty basically my whole life. But she made it work, and we tried. I did try college for a little while, but that's a whole other story as to why I didn't finish. But yeah, so I was born and raised here, and I had a couple of years in like Connecticut and stuff, but for the most part, it's been right here.
Was there a dad in your life?
No. So I was technically born in Florida. I moved here when I was 2 weeks old. But my father wasn't interested in knowing about me when my mom reached out. He didn't answer her, and her whole family was in Vermont, so she made the decision to just come back and do it on her own.
Okay. Okay, so no dad.
No.
Is mom still with us?
Yes, she is. She is a veteran, and she is disabled. My senior year of high school, she began having health problems, including mini strokes and heart attacks, and things like that. So she has been on disability and also homeless at one point while she tried to figure all that out. But now she is settled and has help and resources and things.
Okay. Does she live locally?
Yep, she lives right on Washington Street.
All right, so you're in touch with her.
Yes.
You have a pretty good relationship with her.
Yes. It can be touch and go. We definitely butt heads. We've both got mental health stuff. But yeah, we are still very close.
I've been saying for a long time here on the air, who doesn't have mental health stuff? Yeah. You know. All right, so you got through Spalding High School.
Yep.
Okay, graduated.
Yep.
All right, then what happened?
I then went to college down in South Carolina. I went to a private Baptist Christian college. Honestly, probably best choice I could have made because of their strictness. I would not have succeeded in a secular college. I was there for about a year, I want to say a year and a half, so 3 semesters before I made the choice that I had to come home and try schooling up here, mainly because the cost for me to be down there was really tough, and my mom wasn't capable of like sending me extra money for like extra things, and the plane tickets home for vacations and stuff became difficult, and so it became a choice that I needed to come home and try and do school up here. But at that point, I had a relationship with someone who was up here, and that is who ended up being my first husband and the father to my daughters.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
3.
You have 3 kids.
I have 3 kids. My son will be 7 in March, and my 2 daughters are 9 and 11.
7, 9, and 11.
Yes.
Wow. I'm putting together the timeline here, but all right. So your first husband is the
Father of my oldest 2 daughters.
Oldest 2 daughters.
Yes.
Okay. Then you got married again.
Yes.
Okay. And that's the.
And he is the father to my 7-year-old. Yes.
Okay. And you've recently been divorced.
Yeah. So we, in September, we decided that for the well-being of our kids and to have a healthy environment, that we needed to separate because our relationship had just become toxic together and it wasn't working out, and we didn't want our kids to grow up like that. So we made the decision to separate. We had been staying with his parents, so obviously that meant that I was the one that needed to leave, which was fine. But he is still very much involved with everything that has to do with the kids. He is involved with my 2 daughters that aren't even technically his, but he is very much still there. We share parenting time. He makes sure they get to school and everything. But yeah, so.
What school? Well, maybe I shouldn't ask.
Oh, it's okay.
But it's local school.
Yes.
The kids are in school.
Yes, the kids are in school. They are not in a school in the district where we are currently staying, though.
All right.
So transportation is basically on us, and then we get reimbursed through the McKenna-Vento Foundation for getting them there. But
so, do you mind me asking you how old you are?
I'm 31.
All right. So you're 31.
Yes.
Single mom.
Yeah.
3 kids. Homeless.
Yeah.
Wow. Where are you living?
So currently, we are at the Econo. We had spent a couple of months before we got there with friends and family, but obviously a lot of people have rules about apartments and housing and how long people can stay. So now we are at the Econo in Montpelier.
Okay. How long you been there?
Since the beginning of December. So we spent Christmas there, and I'm not gonna lie, they did an amazing job. The whole hotel was all decorated and beautiful. They on Christmas Eve, they had plates full of cookies for every child that was there. There were 23 of them in the hotel for Christmas, and every child got their own giant plate of cookies. I'm not gonna lie, there were so many of them. I stole one of my kids' plates and sent the other 2 with them. But it was.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
This is really something, and as I'm listening to this, my knee-jerk reaction is circumstantially. This is not very complicated. This could happen to any of us. I mean, it's just the way things unfolded.
Mm-hmm. And it's a little, like, there's even a little more context to it to add. I have a bipolar 1 diagnosis. So I've had to be medicated and under, like therapies and stuff like that for years. I was diagnosed 6 months after my youngest was born, after having a pretty severe mental health crisis that was public and around Barre. Like, some people would probably remember. But I had been stable for years since then. But then when things started getting a little complicated and rocky at home, obviously I struggled mentally and I needed to be stabilized. And my husband, ex-husband Dylan, was very supportive still, and he made sure the kids were taken care of while I went and got stabilized. But because I needed to be hospitalized to be stabilized, I lost the very good new job that I had just started. I worked for about a month, and then I was honest with them about my diagnosis and that I needed to stabilize, which would mean inpatient, and they decided that they were going to let me go. They said that I could no longer work there because I wasn't there long enough to qualify for any of their like temporary stuff. But after I got out of the hospital, I still needed to like help and outside stuff. So they have outside programs. But because I had lost the job, I needed to go on state assistance to be able to do these programs to stabilize and then get back on my feet. It didn't seem like it was going to be that hard. But obviously, throughout these programs, I was in the middle of like bouncing with friends and family and trying to find stable place to stay with my kids. And it just snowballed. So I ended up reaching the point where I finished my program and could re-enter the workforce. And then my car broke. And
This is all kind of recent.
yes, so this is all started last September. So I went into the hospital in like the middle of September. And then December, I was starting to be able to go back into the workforce because I had finished my outside programming and had all my therapies set up and scheduled and whatnot. And like I said, my car broke. And usually not a big deal. I was on Reach Up, so they have like a certain amount of budget that you can put towards your car. Seemed like it was going to work out. However, when Stones called me, they did tell me a few things wrong with it, but he was honest with me and said that the things that I was talking about with my radio and my windows were telling him that my car's electrical system was going. And he was very knowledgeable about my car, how many miles were on it, everything. And he was like, I can fix what's wrong with it, but it will not be sustainable. He's like, this car is going to die. And that's all, like, you can put the money into it, but it's not going to be worth it.
Sure.
So I reach out to my Reach Up person. And of course, she tells me if it's not sustainable, they can't fix it at all. So I have not had a vehicle since December. And acquiring a job without a car is incredibly difficult. I was willing to walk places. I was willing to figure out whatever I could. But it just wasn't working out the way I really needed it to. And a lot of my back history is working with elderly people or like people with mental health, stuff like that. Literally things that you have clients and need a car for. So that's my whole back, like, that's what I have for work history, and finding a job in a different field is not as easy because then you start in the beginning. So then people are always like, you don't want to work. People don't want to work. The problem is I have 3 kids. $15 an hour is not going to make us survive. And I can't justify that when I have work experience on other levels. So I was willing, I did try, but I found a job willing to work with me. A job I very much would be am excited for in a field that I have a lot of heart for. And they are willing to work with me with the car issues. But it's a 6-month temporary position based on the fact that I need to get a car within that 6 months. So we're working on it and trying to get on our feet, but it all just snowballed very fast right before it got cold. And without the ability to be in the hotel program, I do not know how we would survive. And I'm not even aware of how long we are allowed to use that program. While we've been there, we've been doing all the stuff with all the programs for housing, and like low income stuff, obviously, because nobody can afford $3,000 a month. But those waiting lists are also very long. I am on a housing waiting list for Vermont State Housing for a few of their apartments and stuff. But we all know that those wait lists can be astronomically long. So now I'm in the limbo of not knowing how long we are actually allowed to use the hotel program, and then how long it will be until apartments available. So if those don't overlap, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, this orchestration of all of this is so critical.
Yeah.
Things have to fall into place in a certain order, obviously. I mean, my God, I mean, you certainly know that. If you're just joining us, Jayla Dalton lives locally, has lived here her whole life, right here in central Vermont, and went to Spalding High School, and has had quite the interesting life. And it has now found herself among the many homeless in central Vermont. Thank God you, with 3 kids, you're in a place where you've got heat.
Yep.
You said you're in the O'Connell Lodge.
Yes.
Right there on Route 12 in Montpelier. And you're not sure how much longer you can be there.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm pretty sure that with the cold months, I do not know if we have like a limit. Like, I feel like with it being cold, there isn't a limit. But once temperatures are above like 35 degrees, I think it is consistently, they do start tacking on. Like, I feel like it's like 90 days, but I'm not 100% sure.
We're getting some comments here. Couple of comments. Jesse's suggesting something that you and I talked about just before we turned our microphones on. I asked you if you've been in touch with Good News Garage, who does have a waiting list, but
Yes.
and Donna's asking if you've reached out to Capstone and what other services have you been in touch with?
I am on Reach Up, so my worker has done the Good News Garage stuff. It is a very long wait list. It goes on a point system. So if you're not like as needy as someone else, obviously they're going to get the car first. And it can be up to a year, usually, even just in general. So that already kind of puts me out of my time period. I am kind of in touch with Capstone. That's an interesting little subject because you're required to work with Capstone when you're in this program. But I haven't needed as many resources to like fill out applications and make sure they're getting into places as like some other people would need. So I haven't like fully been like involved with Capstone, but I am like in touch with them, and like as my stuff goes through, they'll be like there to make sure like I'm staying up to date on wait lists and things like that. But yes, I have been in touch with them. There is also a church in Montpelier. I'm not sure who it is, because someone from my high school, who no longer lives in this area, actually reached out to me and told me that she knew someone in Montpelier that worked with a food shelf, and they've been every Thursday they drop us off food, and it's literally catered to the fact that we are only allowed a microwave. So in these hotel programs, because of firehouses and the state regulations, the only thing you are allowed to have in your room is a microwave. You can't have a coffee machine, you can't have an air fryer, you can't have a hot plate, you can't have anything, or you can lose your voucher. And yes, I've had a lot of people talk about sneaking things in, things like that. I understand, but with 3 kids, I'm just not willing to risk it. I'm just not. So we've been surviving with microwaves. I've got a few people who have helped like make homemade meals and drop them off and things like that. But yeah, so I have I am in touch with a lot of people. Circle has also been helping me because of a past history of a severe domestic violence issue.
I was going to ask you about Circle this morning. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people in this town that know my story from 9 years ago about being attacked with a hatchet. And I mean, it was in the newspapers and stuff. So yeah, I've actually been in touch with Circle for years since that happened. And when all this happened with like my split and then issues with my girl's father, I again reached out and they have been really helpful.
And that was your first husband?
So the hatchet was not my first husband. That was another boyfriend thing. But I won't say who it was. People know who it was. But yeah, that was a relationship that happened after me and my first husband split. That was the relationship that, yeah. So basically, divorced my first husband. I started dating this man who wasn't even from around here, but he was living in Barre. And then we were together for like 6 months in an incredibly abusive relationship. And we split, and he broke into my house and attacked me with a hatchet. And I was too afraid to tell the cops like I should have, who, by the way, had showed up at that house because of people calling because they heard. But I eventually did get courage to like reach out for help, and with Circle's help and stuff. But the judicial system is not very helpful. He had already had a domestic violence charge. They put him on what they considered house arrest with an ankle monitor, but he was allowed to work night shifts. And if his ankle monitor died while he was working, he was allowed to do whatever the fuck he wanted after. So I had a restraining order, and we were living right at the bottom of Prospect Street, and he was working at Capital Candy. I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's part of the reason why me and the husband that I am still with but separated from ended up moving out of our apartment and in with his parents. And that's where we had been for the last 8 years, with our fun little kiddos.
We have a comment here. Emergency housing for winter ends March 30th. Until state laws change, qualified families get 80 days in a hotel each fiscal year outside of the cold months.
Okay. So, Mark.
Thanks for that, Rebecca. and I'll be honest with you. I've lost track of that because it's changed. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of misinformation going around.
Yes. I'm going to start by putting a couple things that I feel are really important in this situation. One, having been at the hotel this long, there have not been issues. Like, there is not this open drug problem or people drunk in the halls. Like, our problems are tiny footsteps running down the hallway and a giant Great Dane who is the sweetest thing I've ever met. Like, yeah. The wow. hallway I'm specifically on, I know, is full of families, and they don't know, like, you don't even see them all. Like, some of them are so, like, I would assume embarrassed that they don't come out. But it's not like people say it is, like how they're like it's trash, things like that. Like, the common areas are very well kept. Obviously, I don't know what someone's bedroom looks like.
Yeah.
But like, it really, like, and the managers, the housekeepers, everyone is wonderful. But then the other flip side of kind of going back a minute to where I had mentioned my diagnosis is with bipolar and like how that affects homeless communities. Without the resources I have, I would not be able to be where I am. And I am still in a really rough situation. Like, I rely a lot on my mental health team, and I have had my mental health team for years. And there are a lot of people in this community that cannot get that help. And they just closed the psych ward in the hospital. Like, that is where I went when I had my mental breakdown. And when I went to be hospitalized this time, I had to go all the way to Brattleboro. And that meant that hardly anybody could come see me, which was really tough. There were things about Brattleboro that were better, but I'm not going to compare. Like, the fact that the one in Central Vermont is gone is a very big issue. Like, we have a lot of people in this community that need mental health care and they can't get it, and they turn to self-medicating, and then they are judged for trying to just numb the pain that they are going through. And I can completely understand that because I have a severe alcohol problem. I cannot drink. I've been sober for months now. Obviously, when things got tough in September, I did a little slip. But I know myself that I am not capable of just having one drink. I have passed that. I have a problem. But there are a lot of people in our community that have had other drug problems, and I will be quite frank, the only reason I'm not an addict is because when I graduated from Spalding, I went to college in South Carolina. And if I hadn't and I had stayed here, I very much would be a heroin addict. And I know that because I do not have a strong enough no. And if I had friends that were pressuring me and trying, then I most definitely would have. And at the age I am now, I know well enough to stay away from that because of who I am. But at 19, like 18, these kids from my school that have gotten addicted, the kids we have lost, I like we're not bad people. And I can't imagine being in my situation with no mental health care and then being expected to not numb the pain. Like I really can't. And I feel like there's so much more that we need to do as opposed to just judging what we're seeing. And I know we've got a couple people around here that are all over the news all the time. But it's like 5 people. Like the amount of people in the homeless community right now that are hiding from the public is astronomical. Like nobody wants to admit that they are struggling and at this point because everyone is like, well, you did it to yourself. And I'm like, well, actually, this kind of happened. Like I said, me and Dylan had been staying at his parents for like 8 years. And part of that reason was because we could not afford a space big enough for all of us in this economy. So we were already basically struggling with housing before we decided that we needed to live apart. So obviously now we're one income trying to we each have our own income and we're trying to survive, and it's not enough. It's still, I went on today and I looked at the apartments that are available in Washington County right now. And even with the new job opportunity I have, which is a very good job opportunity with benefits and pretty decent pay, I still could not afford an apartment.
When's that job start?
It starts on the 10th, so Monday.
And you're going to take it?
Yeah.
But they need you to have a vehicle to keep that job.
Yes. So there are a few programs with helping you get to and from work and stuff. But the job has clients and does require transportation. So they are willing to work with me for 6 months while I figure out the car stuff. So obviously my first thing I'm going to have to be saving for when I have this job, which mind you is going to take me off of all my state assistance, is going to have to be saving for a car. And that is going to be astronomical because even used cars are crazy. I've reached out to Eric's Auto because he's been amazing for us and our family for years. He gave me the ballpark price of what some of his cheaper vehicles are and things like that. So I've got an idea, but it's still $7,000 to $10,000 for a used car. So I have 6 months to save for that. But on the same side, if I do end up with an apartment, those also come with costs of down payments. And we don't have anything for an apartment. We have a storage unit from our old apartment and it's got a couch and a table in it. It's not I would literally have to refurnish an entire apartment for all of us, which is fine. But that's obviously going to cost money. So Within 6 months, I'm gonna have to save for like a $7,000 to $10,000 car, and then also try and save for the down payment for an apartment, and also what we would need to furnish an apartment. So it doesn't seem like 6 months is too hard for that, but it's definitely stressing me out a little. Like I definitely am like, okay, how are we gonna balance all of this? How are we gonna make sure we get the car in time? And I am not in a position to be able to like go out and buy a nice car with a car payment. I'm not in that position, and partially just because I've never had good like experiences with that. Like the car that just broke, I'm still paying on, and now it's junk. So great. Um, but I would rather get the money together for a used one and just down pay it, and then not have to worry about a monthly car payment, obviously, because they're expensive. They're like $400 to $600.
Boy, you're unpacking a lot of stuff here.
Yeah. Told you I could go on tangents, so that probably has happened a lot.
Getting a suggestion here for the Restore.
Yes, the Restore is definitely going to be a place that we check out once we're ready to start furnishing the house. And I know there's a program that makes beds for kids. That's whole motto is like no kid should sleep on the floor, which I have also been told to look into. So I do have that information too for when.
So do I.
Okay.
So you and I are going to have a conversation off the air about that. And I just scratch that off the list.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a long list for you.
Yeah.
Jayla Dalton is our guest this morning. You said you're 31?
Yes.
Homeless with 3 kids. Thankfully, not living in your car.
Yeah.
Which several have.
Yeah.
There are parents who have been living in
Tents.
tents and in their cars with their kids. Thankfully, you were able to get into the Econo Lodge in Montpelier.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I should add that we are in Montpelier because there isn't any room in Barre. So and there are certain hotels specific for families. So I don't think that's widely known. I don't think that people realize that the hotels being used for these programs, that some of them are only for families or like predominantly used for families. And all of the ones in the Barre area were filled when we looked out for stuff, which is why we are in Montpelier, because we had wanted to try to be in Barre because Barre has more places that I could have walked to for a job that I'm like more aware of. I know it sounds dumb. I'm just not as aware in Montpelier because I've spent all my time in Barre.
Yep.
But also it would have been a closer commute for my kids to get to their school.
Yeah.
So that has been incredibly fun with Dylan's help. He actually has a truck right now he's using, but it's on its last legs. And he's been like still obviously picking up the kids, getting them to school and stuff. And we do, like I said, have the reimbursement, but he's got a truck. And it wasn't his choice. It was what was available, like from his family to use. And it is a gas hog. It's like $60 to fill the tank, and $30 gets us 1, maybe 2 days of transportation for the kids. So we do get the reimbursement, but it doesn't actually cover everything. And it's been tough. Like, it hasn't always been there when we were supposed to have it, and we have both been like scrounging money together to get like to make sure we have enough gas and everything. And he had also been in the position of finding a new job recently too, so we were both juggling everything to make sure everyone was all set and things like that.
Linda just dropped a comment here, and I'm gonna read it because this is a conversation that I'd like to have with you off the air about sleep in heavenly peace. This organization has been in touch with me recently, and we are working our schedules to try to arrange a time to have them on the air with me. This is a remarkable organization who just advocates very hard that no kid should be sleeping on the floor. They are wonderful, wonderful people, and I can't wait to have them on the air with me. They're coming on soon. But she also, and they have a fantastic Facebook page as well, Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Linda's also saying there's on Facebook there's some great pages, free pages for free stuff.
Yep.
Which is it's good to kind of have that in the wheelhouse.
Yes.
But you have a lot of stuff that comes before that.
Yeah.
That you need to contend with here, as if you haven't been enough. I want to ask you about the kids.
Yeah.
You said 7, 9, and 11?
Yes.
Ouch, that's a lot. Man.
They're great.
1 boy, 2 girls.
Yes.
How are they doing?
Okay, so honestly, they do agree that having separate, like living separate, has made us a lot more calm and way more able to talk to it's a lot. They like it a lot more. They do feel like it's a lot more stable and less like chaotic. My girls have a little more of a struggle in general because of the history with their father. It's not unknown knowledge that ever since my daughter was 3 months old, he just up and disappears and decides when he wants to be a dad and come back and whatever. It's been a nightmare. I will admit that when everything hit the fan in September, my daughters had decided that they wanted to try and stay with their dad. He had once again been gone for a year in Texas for no reason. And he came back. They tried to stay with him, and it was about maybe 2 months, and they came home, and it was bad. We were at a Christmas party, and they were getting super depressed and anxious and crying and acting out and begging and pleading for me to not bring them back. And there was already issues, in general, but we had always had the choice that if the girls had an opinion on who they stayed with, we were going to honor it. So that's why we tried it. And it didn't go well. And it's been an issue ever since. With that situation, he refuses to have any kind of visitation that doesn't look the way he wants it to. I just hit the microphone. So they're struggling with that aspect. But because me and Dylan were married about 7 years, which means we were together about 8.5. And he has been the solid father figure to my girls for that entire time. Their father has never had consistent visits, never showed any kind of support with their needs or anything, hardly pays child support, you know how it goes. But Dylan has very much been involved and very strong for them, and they are slightly more well-adjusted because of the trauma with their father, because they've seen that. And I'm not going to lie, I had stuck it out longer in that relationship, even though we could feel that it wasn't right, mainly because I had this fear of trying to co-parent again. And I was like, I can't take the father from these girls. And I really didn't know how we were going to handle it. And I'm telling you, if I had known that we would handle it this well, I would have tried way long ago. If I had known that he would still choose to be a very big part of my girls' lives, even without having any sort of real responsibility, I feel like we could have even started like a better life for them earlier on. But we both had fears, and obviously I had the experience of co-parenting sucking so bad that I was afraid. But because we are able to respect each other, we still do things together as a family. We did Halloween together, multiple Halloween things together. We figured out like Christmas and Thanksgiving stuff, birthdays, all sorts of stuff. We still do things as a family, and we get along, and it's way less turmoil, and it's nice. And I'm not gonna lie, my kids are enjoying the crap out of the room. We before living with his parents, we only had a shower, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But now my kids have experienced what having a bathtub is like, and getting them out of that bathtub is a freaking nightmare.
They love the water.
Yes. So like in general, I don't think they realize necessarily how hard of a situation that we're in, because like mentally and stably, and everyone in their lives that cares about them is still very much involved and loves them, and like Dylan's parents are still very helpful and make sure everything is all set up for them, and like I feel like it could have been way more traumatic than it was.
Becky's asking, are you receiving child support?
I have been on child support with my kids since my baby Lily was a baby, 6 months old probably. He tends to start jobs and leave them, and does not consistently pay. This is probably more information than I need to share, but I got my state, like the taxes stuff that you set forth for child support, and it averaged last year $50 a kid a month. So I'm living the life. Yeah. He's on child support. They try and enforce it. It's never consistent. It's a pain in the butt. Also, I will also just put out there that when you are on Reach Up, if you have an open case with child support, the state actually collects that money because the parent should be paying for the child. So they take the child support as like a reimbursement for the state, that since they're paying like for stuff. And they magically go after the father way harder when you're on state assistance, and that's the case, than they do when you're the one that's supposed to be collecting it. But I have also many times forgiven his arrears just to try and get him to have a relationship with the girls or be around, and it might go well for a couple months, but he doesn't stick around. He's moved to Texas for over a year 3 times since my daughter, like my 9-year-old, was like 3. So, I mean,
You are trying very hard to overcome a lot of obstacles here in your life. Question from Susan saying, I'd like to know about the higher power that you're connecting to for inner strength.
So that's a loaded question. I grew up in the Christian community. Websterville Faith Community Church and Bible Baptist were a very big part of my childhood. So I do still consider myself a Christian. I do still believe stuff like that. However, I also have very different beliefs on some things that the Christian community believes. Like my personal belief is that Jesus would have cared about the homeless and the poor and the LGBTQ community. Like, I feel like Jesus would have been more concerned about helping people as opposed to judging them. And I think that some churches have fallen too much into trying to judge what someone else is doing as opposed to actually following what the Bible is teaching us.
Wow.
So I am part of the LGBTQ community and a Christian. Wrap your brain around that. And the churches that I did mention, like Websterville Bible Baptist, and Faith Community, they have all been part of the community helping us currently. Bible Baptist does a wonderful program with some of their kids for Christmas, and my family was part of that. My son is very involved in their children's ministry, loves it, and was part of their Christmas cantata. I have known most of the people in those churches since I was a child or a teenager too. So, like Josh and Beth, and then Trey and Robin, they've all been amazing.
A lot of people watching and listening this morning. Please, if you would, give Jayla Dalton some support here. Give her a thumbs up, give her a heart. Like this one, share this one. Help this story get out to as many ears as possible here in Vermont and frankly beyond. Got a comment here. Are you on all of the housing lists?
Okay, so I am Vermont State Housing. I have applied to all of that stuff. I'm on a couple of their lists. Only a few of their complexes or whatever they're called actually have 3 bedrooms. So I'm aiming for a 3-bedroom mainly because my 11-year-old really needs her own space as she's growing into a woman, obviously.
Of course.
So I am on all of those. I'm not gonna lie, I have not applied to Barre Housing yet. Mainly because my kiddo has some like things with some of the people that are in Barre City Schools, so she's nervous about transferring there. I do intend to like try and apply there too, but I haven't done that yet. In Downstreet Housing, I'm on their like vacancy list. I do need to fill out their apartment like application, but you can't do it online and it has to be printed. Whole other barrier that we haven't talked about. Even printing things from the library costs money. And applications like that are not like, they're long. So like there are lots of pages and that they cost by a page. So I've had to like rely on a couple friends printing things for me and bringing them to me. Yes, some of the applications can be mailed to you. But if you're homeless, where's that mail going? For me, my mom's. So I'm lucky. But I mean, other people, not so lucky. So there are other barriers that people probably haven't realized that I've had to figure things out for. But yes, I am on a lot of the lists. If there is more than Vermont State Housing, Barre Housing, and Downstreet Housing, I am not on those. I haven't heard of those. But those are the 3 main ones that I have focused on.
Well, Linda and I both are happy to help in that department. She just commented here. You got 2 people that can help you right there, right? Just one of many things. But also got a comment here. Have you ever thought about LNA nursing programs? And we have a lady here, a mom, who says, I was homeless with my 2 and 3-year-old sons for 2 years. I'm now an RN, and my boys are 13 and 14 years old. Stay strong, lady. It gets better.
I have actually looked into the LNA programming specifically at Woodridge. My only thing is I have ADHD, so studying and schooling can be difficult. And I don't mind elderly care. I have done a lot of elderly care, but my heart is really with like adolescents and mental health stuff. So I focused a lot of my time on being like a behavioral interventionist.
Have you thought about Washington County mental health? You have. Okay.
That is where I got the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's not everybody. Let's just be honest, okay? Not everybody is tripping over themselves getting in line to be behavioral interventionists, especially with teenagers. I mean, that's really
I've
something
actually
else.
done this job before. So I had this same position when I was in that incredibly abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And I only left because of being hospitalized after the attack. So I have wanted for a long time to go back to this. And now it's like the doors have opened and I have the ability to, and I am very excited for it. It's not easy and definitely takes a lot of like self-care and awareness, and you have to have your own mental health in check. But it's a really rewarding job, and one of the biggest rewards that I didn't expect. It's been about 8 years since I worked there, and I still have contact with some of the clients from past, like when they reach out after they've aged out and wanted connection. And being able to see where some of these kiddos have ended up. Not even all of them were from Washco. I've worked in other programs too. But being able to see like where some of the kiddos have gone in their lives, and honestly, some of them didn't all make it, and that's really tough. But seeing how the impact of what those programs do can affect someone's outcome really made me want to try again. Like, it's rough when you're in the trenches and you feel like you're not getting anywhere and you're beating your head against the wall, but like when you stick through it, like these kids really, they can go so far. It's astronomical. And I've always had a heart for like the teenage community and like a lot of the kids in foster care and stuff like that, because let's be real, a lot of the kids in that like pool of adolescents with mental health are in foster care.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling positive? We got some warmer months coming in front of us.
Yes and no. So, like, I am optimistic, like, that things are starting to work out, like, things are getting under our feet. Mental health-wise, I'm doing great. My kids are excelling in school.
You're still sober?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I smoke weed, but I'm not drinking. I don't do hard drugs. None of that. But, yeah, so, and like I said earlier, I'm not even quite sure when I quit drinking again, because I just was like, I need to get rid of this. I had help medically and had meds to help me quit, which not everyone has, so we'll throw that out there too. But yeah, so I was able to quit that, get back on my feet, get my mental health sorted, get my kids all set up. Now I have figured out like the ride situation for work temporarily.
What about Highgate and Montpelier Housing? We have someone asking.
Oh, yes. So I haven't applied to Highgate yet, and I'm not going to lie about the reason why. I know a lot of the drug trade up there because of being in an IOP program years ago for my alcohol. And I cannot be that close to it. I just can't. And I don't think anyone living there is wrong. I know there are wonderful people that are up there. I know they're working really hard on that situation. I just know that I am not currently strong enough to be in an area that I know where it is.
Well, at least you know that. I mean, that's good.
It's
right?
funny, though, because I can totally go to a bar and dance and enjoy myself sober with a little mocktail, but if I was ever in a dark place and knew that that was available that close, it's just not something. I mean, it's honestly the same way I view owning a gun for me, because I am not, like, I've never been dangerous, but I do not think that me in a bad mental state should be around one. Obviously, I can't legally get one because of my diagnosis. But that has also meant that when I did live with my husband, that they were locked away for safety and things because of what can happen in a bad episode. And like I said, I haven't had one of those in years. But when I first had one, I was in psychosis and very much not aware of, yeah, like it was fun. It was great. But yeah, so I haven't applied to Highgate because of that. But the other one I hadn't heard of.
I would love to. I'd be honored to have you back in here in another couple of months for an update, if we can.
Yeah.
You willing to do that?
Yeah. Let's hope I'm getting a little further.
You got a remarkable story, Jayla. Really. We have a lot of comments this morning. I encourage you to go back and give them a read and post some replies and stay in touch with the folks that are watching, the folks that are listening. I call them my aired out family, and they're just, most of them are great people who have some amazing insight and huge hearts, and I encourage you to engage in conversation with them and reply to these comments.
There has been a great support through this community. I have honestly been on some of the Barre Facebook pages anonymously a few times. I'm looking for help with some things, and the outpour of love has been phenomenal. And by request of some of the people on that site, there is a GoFundMe to try and help me get the car in time. But I only posted it once because I'm not, like, I don't want it to just seem.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people have a hard time just giving money, so that's totally fine. But I do want to say that when I have reached out in this community for help, I have received a lot more outpour of love than hate, which is why I felt like I could do this. Yeah.
Let's get a date on the calendar for you to get back in here.
Okay.
I guarantee you it'll be a little warmer. And we'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, if you can, folks, give Jayla a thumbs up. Give her some love. Throw a heart up right now for this lady. Single mom, 3 kids, homeless, trying to get her life back on track. And I've met a new friend today. It's you. I didn't know you before today.
It's funny because
I met you 5 minutes before our mics went on.
And I have grown up listening to you because Froggy was a big deal before.
Oh
so,
God.
like, watching you come out and make the podcast, like, afterwards has been awesome. So I've been following you for a while.
Wow. Thank you ever so much for being brave and coming in here and sharing your story so transparently. A story that many of us need to hear. We need to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
And you did it. And I'm proud of you. Thank you and I'm blessed and honored to have you in here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jayla.